What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Starfield because I have now beaten the game and it's kind of surprising to me, but this project has become one of the most controversial games of the year. It's not that it's full of crazy bad jokes or explosive glitches. The game is just controversial because it feels like the internet cannot decide if this is the best game ever or a complete dumpster fire. Well, now I've finished it. I beat the main story. I've messed with ship customization. I've gotten in hundreds of fights. I've done a lot of side quests, and I want to discuss some thoughts because, to be quite honest, I think I'm done playing it. Let's dig into it. Hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, parts of this video are going to be very negative sounding, and part of them are going to be very positive because, to be really upfront, my feelings are mixed. I don't love this game. I don't think it's really as big and spectacular as I really kind of hoped. I'm a classic Bethesda fan. I grew up playing Morrowind and Fallout, and at this point, I've been professionally reviewing games for an entire decade, which means not only have I played a lot of Bethesda games, I have reviewed Skyrim 3 separate times. Todd Howard, stop releasing that game because I'm just going to keep reviewing it. So going into Starfield, my expectations were high, but additionally, I really didn't like the marketing for this game. A lot of the trailers, the early gameplay stuff just definitely didn't grab me, but now that I've had a chance to beat it, I can definitely say this is one of those styles of experience that's about you holding the controller. It doesn't look great. It's not a particularly flashy game, but man, when it's fun, it is incredibly freaking fun. I think the major part that's stirring up a lot of the controversy for Starfield is that the first 10 hours of it is just so incredibly flat. This has one of the worst openings of any game I've ever experienced. And keep in mind, I've reviewed hundreds of games at this point. The first 10 hours, you're over-encumbered, you lack oxygen, your ship sucks, your weapons are weak, you don't have any talent points. It takes this game quite a while to get started, but once the ball is rolling, once you get those early unlocks, the game becomes dramatically better. What's funny is that people are actually theory crafting how to make this first 10 hours suck less because, man, I do think a lot of people that download this on Game Pass are going to completely bounce off the greatness of late game Starfield. There was a recent quote by the director of the game, Todd Howard, where he said, "This is the kind of game where the more you put into it, the more you get out of it." And he's 100% correct. But let's actually talk about this in 3 separate chunks. Let's talk about the gameplay. Let's talk about the, in my opinion, incredibly awful story. And finally, let's discuss some technical details because now that I've played this on both Xbox Series X and a high-end PC, I definitely have some thoughts on how this game looks and runs. Now, first and foremost, the gameplay is fantastic. Top freaking notch. I have played every single Bethesda game. This is the best Bethesda gameplay ever. The shooting is nice, the aiming is tight, the combat is just so addictive, and also I think they do something incredibly smart. When you're playing something like Skyrim or Fallout, a lot of times they bombard you with bandits. There's random fights all over the place. Whereas here, I certainly had times where I didn't get into a single scuffle in an entire hour, and I kind of enjoy that. The fighting in Starfield always feels very purposeful. Like there were times where I bumped into random space pirates and got into a fight that I wasn't prepared for, but 99% of my fights were storyline related. They were people that I was trying to kill, like pirates that were guarding a base where I was trying to rescue some civilians. Most of the fights have this prep period that I really kind of enjoyed. It felt like every fight serves a purpose beyond just, hey, kill 6 guys. A lot of times there is this extra layer of world building, even just to these encounters you have in like a random underground lab. But part of the reason this combat is just so fun to me is the incredibly deep talent system. This is literally my favorite part of the entire game. Every time you level up, you get a talent point. And you could put this into stuff like survival, combat, tech, science. These essentially let you choose how you're going to play. Do you want to fly better and up your piloting level? Do you want to actually go into trees so that you can hack better or heal better? I mean, my favorite stuff is I went heavy into the gun tree and I made it so that my ballistic weaponry dealt more damage. Headshots crit for a lot more. Being able to do some scoped hits. I could actually hold my breath or even aim better in general with a lot more accuracy. What I love about this talent tree is that it ups your passive damage levels. What that means is that not only are you just going to be hitting a lot harder, but additionally, new weapons you find are automatically going to be stronger. What's so fun about Starfield is that as I'm trying to finish quests, as I'm looting a random dungeon or something like that, it's cool that every item feels like it fits my current adventure. I also like the fact that there's just such a wide range of like pistols and shotguns and rifles and laser guns, and each of them definitely behaves differently. This is something they did very well in the Fallout games, but I like the fact that everything feels realistically futuristic. Now, let's talk about the ship combat in a way that doesn't spoil a lot. I'm going to show just a tiny bit of gameplay here because, to be honest, the people I fight in my ship and some of my ships themselves are kind of spoiler heavy, but I think the ship fighting is okay. The dog fighting, like when you're out in orbit battling against people, it doesn't feel that special. It's pretty decent. The controls are definitely very responsive, but at no point did I ever win in space combat and cheer. It always felt like this mandatory thing. Sometimes I just come out of warp and have to fight somebody, and it's just part of the repetitious cycle of exploration. I don't think the space combat is that good, but other people do seem to enjoy it. So I'm going to say this could be one of those times where I'm not a fan of it, but it is incredibly good for the people that are craving laser beams in outer space. But to talk about gameplay, we need to discuss the biggest downside to it, which is that at times it feels incredibly hollow. This game is based on a tile system. Whenever you land on a planet or fast travel to it, it just populates a little tiny square of the Earth itself. So that means you're going to get some random hills or sometimes some little bases and stuff. But if you're not actually there for a specific pre-designed quest, every planet that I ever went to felt incredibly boring, incredibly empty, incredibly basic. And to me, this does suck. As a person that grew up loving Bethesda games, I mean, every single square inch of Morrowind is hand-built. It has this crafted feeling to it. Even Skyrim or Fallout 4, which I know was kind of hated for its time, those games felt hand-built. They were crafted for us to love. They were built so that we could find little hidden secrets or side forts. This game definitely feels like it's just a lot of filler when it comes to the actual environments. When you're in cities, they look pretty cool. When you're going through underground bases and stuff, those are pretty nice. I've definitely seen some rather insane stuff like this NASA History Museum, which I absolutely 10 out of 10 loved. But when I'm just going across some random lunar surface with zero life forms, zero things to look at, zero objectives, and not even a car to drive, it feels big and empty and boring. And times like that really drag down the experience. They really hurt the gameplay loop. I heard someone describe this as exploration without destination, and I think that does kind of sum it up. But let's talk about the story itself, because this is another spot that I feel like some people are going to enjoy and some people are going to hate. The side quests in Starfield are fantastic. You do everything from connecting relays and helping out random settlers in the different parts of the far reaches of star systems to becoming a bounty hunter or a mercenary, joining the cops, or becoming a space pirate yourself. There is such an insane range of incredibly cool side quests that I really did enjoy, but they do get hurt by the incredibly freaking cringe voice acting. Now, without spoiling anything, I beat the main quest, obviously, but I think the acting in this game, the writing in this game, is definitely the worst that Bethesda has ever put out. There is so much forced dialogue that feels so bad that I don't even want to show you some of the stuff because it's so filled with terrible, terrible cringe and spoilers. But there are times where people are asking you about the nature of science and dreams. People that are trying to stop you and ask you about, hey, how do you feel about love and trust and the universe and our connection, man? I would say that about 90% of Starfield feels like super deep, pretend philosophical nonsense. I'm a person that has read a surprising amount of philosophical books. I mean, I don't know why I went through this weird phase of reading about philosophy books of semiotics and symbolism and, stuff like that. So watching this game try and broach heavy topics while mixing it in with very bland quest lines, for me, it absolutely did not work. Additionally, man, do I hate the main story. I hate the plot twists. This feels like NASA tried to fund a Marvel movie. It's got great graphics, it's got big explosive moments, it's got some really cool set pieces, but the actual way that people communicate this plot, it is terrible. Now, obviously, to each their own. I'm sure some people are going to enjoy this, but this is just like so freaking bland. This is the most bare bones basic of stories that has the most poor timing of anything. I don't even want to spoil it, but there are moments in this story that are meant to be big shockers. Times where like a character passes away or somebody in the party betrays you and stuff like that. But the acting is so flat. People are like, hey, everybody constantly talks like they're about to say a joke. Good news, bad news, a little bit of intergalactic horrible war crimes. No matter what, everybody constantly sounds like they're about to say a joke. Like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we all just went and partied? Be serious a little bit. I actually think my biggest problem with this game does come down to the fact that the game feels like it wants to be silly, and then it tries to tell dark storyline moments, and they just don't land. I still think the universe of Starfield is fantastic. If they ever come out with DLC, I'm definitely going to play it. I think certain elements of this game are incredibly brilliant when it comes to the world building. I especially love how they incorporated NASA. Again, no spoilers, but man, that is so freaking top notch. My problem is the fact that it feels like it's trying to engage you in the most pathetic way possible. Now, ending off, let's talk a bit about some of the technical aspects of this. I think, for the most part, the graphics here are surprisingly good. I played it both on Xbox Series X and, of course, the PC, and visually, the game looks truly spectacular. Seeing a bunch of stars, traversing these empty planets, and just seeing random burnt out landmarks, or even the flash of using one of your special abilities to toss a bunch of enemies up in the air, or even the muzzle fire as you're trying to hide from an opponent. All of that looks truly freaking perfect. I mean, this game, even if you just actually played it on mute, even if you skipped every cutscene, I do think you'd have a good time just getting a chance to explore, warp around, enjoy the fact that this game is actually pretty decent. But that does bring me to the downside of it. There is some graphical issues. Sometimes where stuff just definitely doesn't render correct. I had weird issues where my characters had like a glowing outline at times, which looked very, very weird. My biggest problem, though, is that there is constant load screens. I have no idea what technical drawback they're dealing with here, but if you're playing this on Xbox, there are 20-second load screens all over the place. Every door, every zone, even entering your ship sometimes leads to a 20-second load time, which definitely kills the pacing. Now, if you're playing this on PC, like a lot of this gameplay here is, it runs fantastic. I'm playing this on a solid state. It is incredibly swift to teleport around, to fast travel, to hit orbit. Most of my load times are like 3 to 4 seconds, but if we're thinking about the console experience, if this is supposed to be the must-have Xbox game, it definitely needs something to try and speed up that moment-to-moment action. Now, the last thing I definitely want to gripe about is the fact that, honestly, this game relies way too heavily on fast travel. Almost every moment that I was playing this game, it felt like it was just so reliant on almost getting you from place to place. And the deeper you go into the story, the weirder this feels. You just open up your star map and teleport to locations, or even if you have to actually go into space and hit warp, a lot of times you're warping in just a couple seconds. I'm a massive Star Trek fan, so I was hoping for some amount of traversal, of exploration, of moments to really kind of catch your breath and marvel at space. And this game gives you none of that. As a classic Bethesda fan, games like, every single Elder Scrolls, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, they have those really good times where you see the next destination, times before you unlock a fast travel point where you have to forcibly sit and acknowledge the grandeur of the land. Here, you land on a randomly populated planet, you walk across some sand dunes, you shoot a couple invaders, and then you leave. The combat is fun, as I've said, but when it comes to actual world building, fast travel massively detracts from caring about this universe. Starfield is not a bad game. I actually think it's pretty dang decent. It is a steal of a deal on Game Pass, but as a Bethesda project, it's probably my least favorite game they've ever released other than Fallout 76. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Starfield a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. This video has been very fun to do. Honestly, I put about 30 hours into Starfield, and while I'm definitely done until people start modding in new planets and stuff, it's been a decent experience. If you have Game Pass already paid for, I definitely suggest you download it. Just get past that first 10 hours. It's boring and it's rough, but it does get better. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.